Hello and welcome back to Bike Matters. My name is Brett and today we've got this super funky little bike here. This is the Sinnis Akuma 125 and I'm going to bring you a full review. Now powering the Akuma is a 124.6cc single-cylinder air-cooled engine that puts out 9.7 brake horsepower at 9,000 RPM and 8.5 Nm of torque at 7,500 RPM. Now yes, it is just a simple air-cooled engine on this which meets Euro 5 regulations, so this isn't built for top speed, it's really not. A lot of those kind of 15 brake horsepower engines will outdo this. But that's not what this bike is designed for. This really is to be nice and nimble around towns and cities up to about 40-50 miles an hour while being pretty good when it comes to fuel efficiency. Now the Akuma has a 5-speed gearbox which really isn't much of a problem for the intended use of the Akuma. As I say, top speed is not what this thing is designed for. It's designed to be nice and nippy around town and that's exactly what the gearbox allows it to do. Yes, the first few gears are quite close together, but that's really not much of a problem because it's just what you expect from a little 125 like this. And it gets up to 40 miles an hour, nice and quickly indeed. So just getting around town, darting through traffic, it does it perfectly. And that engine, yes, it might not have 15 brake horsepower, it's only just under 10, but it does the job that's intended for it, while being quite fuel efficient. Now as top speed is concerned, going downhill, giving it everything I possibly could, the dash said 68 miles an hour. Was it 68? No chance in hell. I think it is just over 60 miles per hour. But again, it's not really what it's designed for. I think everyday top speed, you're just going to go casual, kind of 55, 60 at most. But like I say, it's really around towns and cities, up to kind of 40, 45, going through traffic, this thing really does excel quite well. When it comes to the looks and styling of the Sinnis Akuma 125, I'm a big fan. It's very modern, very aggressive. I just think it looks fantastic. And it's clearly taken inspiration from the Italians out there, which is no bad thing, because if you're going to nick something, it'll be Italian design in my opinion. It looks really great and sporty. And when you think the target audience for a bike like this is youngsters fresh off a CBT, I think this really is going to tick a lot of boxes for them. Colorways, we've got this gorgeous red one here today, which I'm a big fan of. If you don't like that, there is a black option as well. But for me, it's the kind of combination of having the blacked out elements as well, which really pops with the red. It just looks so nice. We do have LED lighting mostly throughout. We've got the indicators, rear lights, and the daytime running lights with a halogen bulb as the main headlight. But just overall, I think aesthetically, it is very pleasing indeed. So while we're talking about the looks and styling of the Sinnis Akuma, one thing I want to point out is that awesome looking triple exhaust. However, it looks a lot better than the sound it makes because, to be honest, it doesn't really make much sound at all. Most of the sound comes from that engine. So for me, I'd love it if Sinnis were able to work their magic and make that triple exhaust sound just as good as it looks. So it's pretty clear to see that the Akuma is quite a short bike. Its total length is well in under 1900 millimeters. But to be honest with you, the rest of the proportions of the bike are not that small. The seat height is 820 millimeters, which is definitely not short at all. And we've got a decent sized fuel tank here as well. So the whole proportions of the bike, yes, the length is short, but the rest of it just feels like a typical 125. So something I do want to point out about the seat is, yes, it's 820 millimeters high, which is quite high compared to some of its competitors, but it does get a little bit firm after a while on the saddle. Under an hour, shorter journeys, you're really not going to have a problem, but for those longer ones where you're on there for over an hour, it will get a little bit uncomfortable. So if you don't already know, Bike Matters, our YouTube channel, is powered by Lexham Insurance, who are motorcycle and scooter insurance specialists in the UK. Not only do they make it possible for us to put out this type of content, but they give our viewers in the UK a cool little opportunity of saving up to £20 off their insurance premium. Just click the link in the top right hand corner now, that'll take you through to their quotation form, and the price at the end will automatically have £20 deducted. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it is quite a large fuel tank on this at 13 litres of fuel, which for a bike of this size, especially for 125, is really quite impressive. Fuel economy is pretty decent too, and I think you should realistically expect kind of 90 to 100 miles per gallon, which if you use every drop of that 13-litre fuel tank, could see you easily get figures of 250 to 300 miles in range, which is really, really impressive for a 125. So let's move on to braking next, and at the front here we have this 276mm braking disc, and as you can probably see we have a 3-piston caliper, but it does run combined braking system, which essentially means 2 of those pistons are used on the front brake, whereas the other piston is used when you activate the rear brake. Now if we move to the back of the bike, we have a 220mm braking disc with a single piston caliper. Now, as I say, it does run combined braking system, so no ABS to see here, but at this price point, it's very understandable. The brakes themselves, for me, are pretty damn good, to be fair. The front brake is really nice and progressive. The back brake, as you'd expect, is subtle, but when you work both those brakes at the same time, it does bring you to a really nice halt. So for me, the braking on this does a pretty good job. For suspension, we have these upside down forks at the front, and kind of hidden away just back there is a monoshock. And for me, the suspension on this is a very similar story to the braking. I've actually been quite impressed. I thought I was going to get quite a hard, firm feeling to the suspension on this, but for everyday riding, it is a really nice, comfortable job. The steering and handling capability as well, around the bends and corners and stuff like that, this is as nimble of a bike as you'll probably find out there. It is a lot of fun. And although at times, yes, you do feel it on the rougher roads and the lumps and the bumps, the general day-to-day riding comfort from that suspension is pretty damn decent. Now, one thing that has been updated on this version of the Akuma is the wheel size. So we now have 14-inch wheels to the front and the back, which is quite a nice improvement to have, and means that top speed, it will just be that little bit better. But for me, having a 120 wide tyre at the front and a 140 at the back, which is quite wide tyres for a 125, really means at higher top speeds, it feels firm and nicely planted on the road. So quite typically we have a steel tubular frame on the Akuma, but that doesn't prevent it from being quite lightweight, because all in, this weighs at 125 kilograms, which for a 125cc motorcycle is pretty darn light, and it really adds to that agile and nippy characteristics the bike gives off throughout. So for me, it makes it very accessible indeed, not just on the road where it really is a hoot on bends and just weaving through traffic. Even when it comes to manual handling, for people who are a bit fearful of heavier bikes, this is an absolute doddle. So as we all know, the Sinnis Akuma is more of a budget-friendly motorcycle, and there is admittedly some aspects which do seem a bit more budget than others. And for me, the switchgear, although it's nicely placed and does work, does feel a bit cheaper. And when we move on to the dash, it's a similar story. The dash is nice and clear, and I didn't really struggle with glare, and the information is nicely laid out. But the buttons and the kind of feeling of it do seem a bit cheap. There's a random mode which is called colour, and you just press it and it changes to about 7 different colours. I'm not really sure why that's there. The other modes are a little bit basic. So yeah, when it comes to switchgear and dash, it is a little bit filling on the budget side of things. And there isn't really much other tech as well. As I say, we do have kind of some LED lighting, and it's got a combined braking system, but that is really about it. Now, as I've been banging on about all video, this is a budget-friendly bike, and it starts from £2,599 plus on-the-road fees, and that includes a 2-year warranty. But how does that compare against others out there? So the Benelli TNT, which is very similar in spec, and let's face it, looks, is about the same price, but obviously that's an Italian-inspired Chinese-built bike. But clearly there is a big rival here from a Japanese manufacturer, which is the Honda Grom, which is £1,250 more than this. Now, quite clearly, you can't really compare the two in ways of quality, because this is cheaper made and doesn't quite have that level of prestige and quality to it. But for those who don't have that kind of budget and want a cheaper offering at over £1,000 cheaper, the Sinnis Akuma does put itself firmly in the shop window. So what are my final thoughts on the Sinnis Akuma 125? Well, firstly, I think it looks absolutely fantastic. And for someone getting a 125, a youngster in an urban area, this is going to suit them all day long. It looks fantastic. The rideability, the steering on this thing, how nimble, how agile it is, it's a lot of fun. Yes, there's no decent top speed there and you're not going to take it on fast roads, but in busy urban areas where you're going to have to filter through traffic, it really is a massive hoot. It is wicked fun. Yes, we know at £2,599, it is budget friendly and there is some compromises like the cheaper switchgear and dash, but it doesn't take away that I've still had a wicked time on this motorcycle. It's very accessible. The seat is worth making you wear. After an hour or so, it does get a little uncomfortable. But again, if you're commuting around the city, you're not going to be in that saddle for longer than an hour anyway. For the price point, for how good this looks, it's a pretty damn good offering by Sinnis. So there you go everyone, that is my full review on the Sinnis Akuma 125. Have you enjoyed it? If you have, please hit that thumbs up and give this video a like. What do you think of this Sinnis Akuma? Are you a fan? Do you own one? Make sure to let us know in the comments section below. If you like this type of content, we've got loads on the way, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and ding the notification bell. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.